Matthew chapter 26, verses 57 to 68, Jesus questioned by the Sanhedrin. The number that we will be featuring in this video is number 4892, Sanhedrin. And we're going to continue with the verbs, and in this case, with the infinitive. It begins in verse 57, Ide kratisantes ton soon apigagon pros kaiaphan ton archiarea. And the ones having seized. Now, I have recently found out that many places, or there's a participle which are underlined. If it's an aorist past tense, then it should be having rather than just plain seizing. So I'm changing these for the fourth edition. So just to give you a little heads up, so as I go through, I'll be making these corrections. So the ones having seized, it's an aorist past tense participle of doing it. Having seized Jesus, they took him away to Caiaphas, the chief priest. Opu I grammatis ke I presbyteri sinik thesan, where the scribes and the elders were gathered together. These were these people that came so many times to Jesus, the scribes and the elders and the Pharisees, to trick him up, to prove that he was not who he says he was, and they did their very best during his life to make it miserable as much as they possibly could, I believe. So now the culmination of all their negativity is coming to a head, and they are all gathering together with Jesus in front of them. In verse 58, O they Petros ikoluthi avto apo makrothen, eos tis avlis to archiareos. But Peter followed him from far off unto the courtyard of the chief priest, someplace in the temple area. Ke iselthon eso, ekathito meta ton ipereton idin totelos. And here is another one, past an aorist participle. Having entered inside, he sat down with the officers to see the conclusion, telos. Now later it'll go into the story about Peter and the rooster crowing and everything, but not in this section. In verse 59 it says, Ide archiaris ke I presbyteri ke. Now the chief priests and the elders and to Sanhedrion olon ezitun pseudomartyrion kata to Isu. And the entire Sanhedrin sought false witness against Jesus. The Sanhedrin was more of a governmental body, like I suppose in the United States, like Congress, but it was ruled by the clergy of the day. But apparently they didn't have any more morals than many legislative bodies do. You have politics involved, even if they are the clergy. So what did they do? They sought a false witness. They wanted to trick him. This was what they call a kangaroo court, something that is already planned to find him guilty. Doesn't matter if the person's innocent or not. It says, kata to Isu, against Jesus, opos thanatosu sinavton, so that they should kill him. They wanted to kill Jesus, kill God, kill the Messiah. This is horrible people. And the Sanhedrin, it first mentions in Psalms 26:5, where it says, I sat not with the Sanhedrin council of folly, and with the ones acting unlawfully in no way shall I enter. So the Sanhedrin didn't have a very good reputation. Matthew 10:17, Jesus says, Take heed of the men, for they shall deliver you into Sanhedrins, and in their synagogues they shall whip you. And this happened to Christ, as we see here. It mentions other times people going before the Sanhedrin, Peter and John in Acts 4. The apostles who are preaching in Jerusalem in Acts 5. Stephen, the martyr, in Acts 6. And then later, Paul in front of the men from the Sanhedrin who came, I think it was to Caesarea, in Acts 22:30. And then they sought a false witness. We have two different words, 55:75 and 55:77. It says in 1 Corinthians 15:5, and we are found even as false witnesses of God. For we witness concerning God that he raised the Christ. So that's the only other place outside of in Matthew where it talks about the false witnesses called to testify against Jesus. So the only other place is that one in 1 Corinthians. In verse 60, it continues, Ke uk everon, and they did not find, and I reason is what it's talking about, Ke polon pseudomartyron proselthonton uk evron, and many false witnesses having come forward, and there's a participle, there's got the having, they did not find reason, nothing that they could charge him with. But isteron they, proselthontes theo pseudomartyris, but afterwards 2 false witnesses having come forward, 61 said. Now, what Jesus said earlier is in John 2:19 or 18. What sign do you show to us that you do these things? Jesus answered and said to them, loosen this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it. Then the Jews said, 46 years it took to build this temple, and you in 3 days will raise it? But that one spoke concerning the temple of his body. When then he was raised from out of the dead ones, his disciples remembered that this he said to them, and they believed in the scripture and in the word which Jesus spoke. So here now, these false witnesses, says they said, utos ephi, this one said, diname katalise ton neon, I am able to destroy the temple. Well, he didn't say that. To theou, of God. Ke dia trion imeron ikodomise afton, and in 3 days to rebuild it. He's talking originally, of course, is about his body. Well, they didn't have ways of proving what somebody said. There was no video cameras or tape recorders, anything like that. So it just basically had to do with hearsay, the people that were actually listening and heard a person say that. So I suppose if you had these 2 false witnesses says, yes, he said that, then that was good enough for the Sanhedrin to condemn him. In verse 62, it says, Ke anastas o archiorefs epenafto, having risen up, the chief priest said to him, so Pharaoh, he gets up and, then apokrini, nothing you answer. Jesus is standing there, apparently not doing it. And then, ti uti su katamartirusin, and it's saying, what is this? These have borne witness against you. And this word here is in the passive tense. In verse 63, O the Isus esiopa, but Jesus kept silent. Ke apokrithis o archeorefs ipan avto, and responding, the chief priest said to him, Exorchizo se kata tu theou tu zontos, I adjure you according to the living God. Adjuring somebody. In Genesis 24:3 it says, and I adjure you by the Lord God of the heaven and the God of the earth, that you should not take a wife to my son Isaac from the daughters of the Canaanites. So the adjuring somebody, making them swear. And in Judges 17:2, and he, that was Micah, said to his mother, the 1,100 pieces of silver seized from you, and you adjured and spoke in my ears, behold, the silver is with me, I took it. So saying something, causing somebody to swear. Apparently this young man did wrongfully swore to his mother. And then it continues that ina imin epis e o Christos, that to us you should say if you are the Christ. O eos to theou, the Son of God. And legi avto o Isus, and Jesus says to him, si ipas, you said it. Plain, lego imin, furthermore I say to you, aparti opsosthe ton ion tu anthropu kathimenon ek dexion tis dynameos. And from now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting down at the right hand of the power. Now, sitting at the right hand of the power, it talks about that in Matthew 22:44, where it says, sit down at my right until whenever I should establish your enemies for a footstool of your feet. And then Hebrews 12:2, it says, endured the cross, disdaining the shame, and at the right of the throne of God has sat. So Jesus is sitting at the throne, next to the throne of God. In 1 Peter 3:22, it says, Jesus, who is at the right of God, being gone into the heaven. Revelation 5:1 says, and I saw upon the right of the one sitting upon the throne a scroll, and he came and took a scroll from out of the right hand of the one sitting upon the throne. Now back to our text, and erchomenon epi ton nephalon tu uranu, and coming upon the clouds of the heaven. Jesus is telling them what he's going to be doing. And in Revelation 1:7 it says, behold, he comes with the clouds, and every eye shall see him, and all the tribes of the earth shall lament over him. Then later in 14:14 in Revelation, it says, and I saw, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud sitting was one likened to the Son of Man. So what happens then? He says what he's coming, he's going to be at the right and coming back on the heaven. Tote o archiarefs virixeta ematia aftu. Then the chief priest tore his garments, legon oti, saying that. Now, chief priest tearing his garments, in Leviticus 10:6 it says, your heads shall not be without a turban, and your cloaks you shall not tear, that you should not die. And that's also in Leviticus 21:10. It was a real no-no. So basically what this high priest was doing was something that we see here in a word in the next following. But as far as tearing the garments, we see Joshua tore his garments in Joshua 7:6. One of the judges, Jephthah, tore his garments when his daughter appeared, when he had a curse on the first person that appeared. King David tore his garment in 1 Samuel 1:11. It says, though, he's saying that blasphemy say. He blasphemed. Well, the one who blasphemed is a high priest by tearing his garment. Ti eti krian ekomen martyron. What still do we have need of witnesses? They see nin ikusate tin blasphemian aftu. Now you heard his blasphemy. Verse 66. Ti imin thoki. What do you think? They apokrythentes ipan, and they, having responded, said, Enokos thanatu esti, he is liable of death. In verse 67, Tote eneptisan is prosopon aftu, then they spat in his face. It says in Luke 18:32, by Jesus, for he shall be delivered to the nations, and will be mocked and will be insulted and will be spit upon, exactly what happened. And it continues in the text then, K, ekolafi son afton, and they buffeted him, hit him. In 1 Peter 2:20, it says, for what fame if sinning you endure being buffeted? But if doing good and you endure suffering, this is favorable with God. So being punished is what Jesus was being punished for doing. Nothing wrong. And then it says, Ide arapison, and some slapped. And Jesus says in Matthew 5:39, whoever slaps you on your right jaw, turn to him also the other, which is probably what Jesus did. And then in verse 68, legontes, they're saying, prophetiv son, and there is prophesy to us, Christ, in the imperative. Tis estin o pesa si, who is the one having hit you? So all these things have come against Jesus, all these people, the power of the people at the time of this little small country called Israel coming against God, which they have a long history of doing, and they were sent out for 2,000 years as punishment. They have come back in 1948. They're here right now, but I don't think good things are going to be happening to Israel. More the world right now, Israel is going to possibly be attacked any day by the Iranians. What happens, only God knows, but we will find out soon enough. The next section, it goes then back to Peter, who denies Jesus. Matthew chapter 26.